A day-long NATO summit begins in Brussels today as 30 NATO allies gather to deliberate on a wide range of issues. NATO General Secretary Jens Stoltenberg has clarified that NATO allies are not entering in a new Cold War with China, as it is neither their enemy nor their adversary. The summit is expected to see Biden mark a resumption of the United States' leading role in NATO. He will be taking the center stage at the alliance's first leaders' summit since the pandemic began. Remember, after meeting with NATO General Secretary last week, US President Joe Biden had vowed to rebuild relations with allies after 4 rocky years under former President Donald Trump. Trump had pulled Washington out of several multilateral institutions and threatened at one point to quit NATO. Apart from the US president, Turkish President Erdogan has arrived in Brussels. Erdogan has one-on-one meetings with a number of leaders lined up during the summit, the most important of which will be with US President Joe Biden. NATO General Secretary Jens Stoltenberg has emphasized that it's important for the NATO members to forge a stronger common policy against China. He has added that the security of the members' nations is at threat as China continues to build and invest in its military. Leaders are likely to agree to draw up a new master strategy document known as NATO's strategic concept to include China's military rise as a challenge for the first time. NATO allies might formally oppose the alliance deploying ground-based nuclear missiles in Europe. The move is seen as a possible way to ease tensions with Moscow and to prepare for an arms control dialogue ahead of the US-Russia summit in Geneva. Apart from China and Russia's efforts to divide the West, which are likely to run through discussions, climate change will for the first time be an issue of important discussion during the summit. A pledge to make NATO militaries carbon neutral by 2050 is also expected. The NATO summit will also agree reforms to the alliance known as NATO 2030, which was set in motion after Trump questioned its relevance. Stoltenberg will set out 9 areas where NATO could modernize over the medium term, including more joint allied funding of military operations. And ahead of the NATO summit, protesters took to the streets to stage rallies. Flag-waving protesters called for peace, with some protesters calling for Europe to distance itself from the United States' international policies.
The bosses, the leaders of the world, of the NATO will gather. Onze chauffeurs zijn al goed opgewarmd. Nu gaan we